Technologies. We're a Westminster-based public affairs company. Very pleased to be here at the Labour Party conference. This is day 2. It's starting to feel a bit more familiar to be here, and the weather's good. We're not squelching around like last year, which is absolutely great. We're here to talk this morning about fabric. The fabric of our buildings is absolutely a key issue, and we have an incredible panel here today. Rather than myself reading from notes, I think it would be much lovelier, nicer if the colleagues on the panel just did a very quick introduction, and much thanks immediately to our elected colleagues who have joined us today. So Kirith, if I could ask you to kick off, could I suggest to you lean...
I was elected last July to represent Bolton North East, and I'm very happy to be here and to take part in this discussion, because housing is a really big problem for me in my constituency. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Industry in the UK, having represented our members for over 40 years now.
Luke.
Good morning. My name is Luke Joyner. I'm a MD of Joyner Group, second generation. The company's been going for over 40 years. We're based in the Southwest and in South Wales, and we do multi-measures, solar, air source, loft insulation, and also I'm a vice chair of INCA.
Thank you. Nick.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Nick Miles. I'm the Director of Product Innovation at a company called EWF Pro Insulation Systems. So we're a system manufacturer and designer, supplying external wall insulation rendering solutions to companies like Luke's. We're also an INCA member, and I want to thank our elected colleagues and congratulate Martin on his new position as well. And
yes.
I suppose what I'm looking to get out of today's discussion is how do we progress that fabric for a 3-generation story, because there's a lot of homes out there that are in desperate need.
Martin, thank you. Over to you. Just a bit.
I'm Martin McCluskey. I'm the MP for Inverclyde West, and as of 3 weeks ago today, the Minister for Energy, Consumers in Desnes, and
yes.
looking forward to the discussion.
Fantastic, thank you. So we have a most excellent panel. As you can tell already, what we're trying to do is to bring our elected colleagues together with industry as we have this very important discussion. And Kirith, as you've said, this is key. The one thing I understand is that this is almost the #1 issue for elected colleagues across the country, regardless of your party that you represent. At Parliament, you're there to represent everybody, and it is the #1 issue. And when I say the #1 issue, it's about the cost of accommodation, it's about the quality of that accommodation, and all sorts of other factors around cost of living crisis. So this is really important. And I suppose, Martin, if I may, because you are the Under Secretary of State responsible for many of these things, and we wait for the Warmer Homes Plan, whether it will come out in October, maybe you could give us some information on that. But clearly it's key that whilst we think about innovative technologies and all of the other things that can support people and their quality of housing, fabric is such an important part of that discussion. So I'd be very interested to hear from you. Just, if I can, a stat for you, because stats are sometimes good. It's a bit like billions of pounds. It washes over people's heads. But just to say to you that there are 9 million homes in this country pre-1945, and only 5% of those homes have a cavity. So if you're going to improve the fabric of those homes, you can either do that inside the property or external to the property. And the reality is that many of the new bolt-on measures that we were talking about yesterday, so solar and energy storage and far infrared and all of these great technologies, they are part of the mix, but they're not the totality. So Martin, if I could ask you to kick off, and thank you for your time, and to Kirith too for joining us today.
No, thank you. Should I come here?
Oh, well, I think stay there. That's fine. Let's keep it. I'll move this away.
Thank you for having me here this morning. I think the last 3 weeks have been a flurry of briefings. I feel like I've been locked in a basement for the last 3 weeks, being assaulted by
It's good to be out then.
Yeah, it's very good to be out. But the thing that the officials kept saying to me, and others, if you've been at any other fringe events that I've spoken at, might have already heard this, they kept saying to me, if I'm going to any events, that I'm very much in listening mode, which I think just means don't open your mouth before you've read all the briefing. So we'll see where we end up at the end of this, and whether I've committed the great sin of making any news, hopefully not. I just want to say a few things to start, and maybe if we just start by zooming out and then kind of get down to some of the specifics. And I'm keen to also make sure I've got time to take questions at the end of this as well. Just firstly about the politics of this. I'm sat in a department that has a very clear mission, the clean energy mission for the 2030 plan, and net zero by 2050. It's a mission not just for DESNZ but across the whole of government, and that is really important. And I think setting that mission and having the ownership across government has meant that we've really been able to drive progress over the last year. And I think what struck me coming into the department 3 weeks ago was just how clear it felt on coming in. You've got a lot of people in there who know what they need to achieve, who know what we need to do to achieve it, who are all pulling in the same direction. I think that's important for government, but I think that's also really important for industry, and where you're looking for a signal in terms of what you need to deliver. I think that's really important. We have made great progress in 1 year, and of course I'm going to say that as a government minister, but as we start to look towards the second year of government and on delivery, we have already been delivering through DESNZ, whether that's establishing GB Energy, some of the stuff that we've done around solar through GB Energy on schools and hospitals, 150,000 home upgrades, really accelerating the pace of upgrades over the past year, and really major investments in clean energy generation. I know that's not why we're here this morning to discuss that. I think it's important context to just think about how the department is working and how government has really gripped this. It's important to remember, I'll come back to this at the end as well, that none of this has happened by chance. I know there has been a broad cross-party consensus in many of these areas, but the acceleration that we've seen over the last year is because of a political choice made by a Labour government to really work at pace on these issues. And if there is obviously more, this space will be more contested as we move forward over the next 4 years. And now, obviously, the focus from some of our political opponents has been around net zero, but they will come for all of this. Like they are going to come for the clean power generation, and they will come for some of the fabric policies as well. So there's a real threat in this area. It might look like there's lots of opportunities at the moment. There is, because the government is investing and moving at pace, but this area is still under threat. And for those of you in the room, I know we've got people here from industry, we've got Labour Party members, we've got activists. There's a job for every single one of us to be doing to making clear why this is so important in the period between now and the next general election. So that's a political point. Moving more to the detail, I look at my job as Minister for Energy Consumers, and particularly in this area around fabric and home upgrades, as this is the bit of the clean energy piece that is going to bring this home to people, quite literally, because we are going to be upgrading their homes. We are going to be replacing gas boilers with heat pumps. We're going to be making all of these significant upgrades. So this is, for a lot of people, this is going to be what they see, and this is going to be their experience of this. And as has already been mentioned, we have a massive job to do. 30% of direct emissions come from buildings. We can't grip this problem if we don't grip the problem of buildings, both domestic and non-domestic. And into the portfolio that I've got now, I've also taken non-domestic buildings. We've brought domestic and non-domestic together under the one minister. That will change from my predecessor. I think that's quite important, because buildings are so important to what we're trying to achieve. 81%, and you mentioned the figure about pre-1945, but 81% of our homes were built before 1980, to far lower standards than we're building to today. Just as an emphasis of the scale of the challenge, through the Warm Homes Plan, we are going to try and upgrade, or we intend to upgrade 5 million homes. Now that is massive. If you think about, again, taking this back to some local history, if you think about what we did in terms of home building in the 20s and 30s with the Peatly Housing Act, these are the kind of numbers that we're talking. These probably exceed some of the numbers we were talking about then. This is a massive endeavour on the part of government that's going to require all of us to be pulling ahead. As Minister for Consumers, however, one of the things that we need to be mindful of is if we're asking people to make significant changes to their homes, whether that's through insulation or heat pumps or any of these other upgrades, the entire consumer protection piece is going to be really important. And I'm sure we'll maybe get into some of that discussion. We've already seen over the last year since Labour came to power some of the issues with external wall insulation, which my predecessor made a number of statements in the House of Commons about that. These are the kind of things that erode confidence in the whole home upgrade system. If we don't get this right, we are not going to be able to reach the stretching targets that we've set for 2030 and 2050. So if there's a challenge for government, but also from me to industry, we need to think constructively and collaboratively about how we make sure that we can build consumer confidence in these measures. Because if we don't manage to do that, we're not going to reach the targets that we need to reach. Citizens Advice and MCS have said that the biggest barrier to people actually taking action on fabric and on heat pumps is the confusion over how the system works. And that's about how people actually get the measures into their homes, but also if things go wrong, where do they go? You know, so if we expect people to be making these changes, we need to have a proper, robust consumer protection model all around it. And I'd be interested to hear from colleagues in the room about how they think we might be able to achieve that and build on the work that's already been done over the last year. Warm Homes Plan, just very briefly, it's coming in October. I've certainly signed PQs that say it's coming in October, so it better come in October. It's big, it's bold, it's ambitious. It is, like I've said before, the thing that's really going to bring home to people what it is we're trying to achieve. But from a Labour point of view, from a specifically kind of Labour government point of view, this is also how we're going to deal with fuel poverty. It's going to be how we deal with a lot of those issues we've been facing around substandard housing and rising energy bills. Final point before we move on. I said at the start this is going to be a political fight over the next 4 years for maintaining consent around these issues and for taking on some of the arguments we're going to see from the political right around net zero and some of this agenda. I think we need to bind together everything that we're doing in terms of home upgrades to fix affordability, the supply chain, the jobs that are coming from this. Again, it's a very real, tangible thing to see houses having external wall insulation put on. That's jobs in factories that are building this stuff, that's jobs for people who are installing it, and it's jobs that are easily understood by people and will be able to, people will be able to see the benefit of it. So I think as we go forward over the next couple of years, I think this agenda is going to be crucial in terms of building consent for the whole piece around net zero, and that's certainly what I'm going to be gripped by, both the benefit to people and the jobs, but also that affordability piece, which is incredibly important. So I will leave it there. Really interesting.
Martin, thank you so much, and thank you for your time. I'm conscious, everyone in the room, that our elected colleagues only have a certain amount of time, half an hour or so. So I'm going to do this a little differently so that we can actually get some Q&A too. So Kirith, just your initial thoughts, and then we'll take one of the industry colleagues, and then perhaps we'll go to Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned earlier about just you touched on it as well, Spencer, just the sheer problem we have in terms of housing. I've stood up and spoken before in Parliament about issues around temporary accommodation, and I just think we really need to start thinking differently about housing and homes, and I think we are seeing that from our government at least, which is great. It's not just about having a roof over your head, it's very much about that quality of life, and I think that's why when we're talking about Fabric First, it's very important to think about the impact that will have on families or individuals' bills. We've talked a lot about the cost of living. I think thinking more outside of the box in terms of a home isn't just a roof over your head, it's the bills, it's your quality of life, it's with temporary accommodation, we've heard so many appalling stories about mould on walls and the impact that's having on children. When we're talking about homes and housing, we really need to be thinking about the impact that's going to have on somebody's life. And so I think this is absolutely the right approach to be taking, thinking about Fabric First, not just to reduce bills, but also in terms of thinking about the quality of life aspect as well. And the stats that Martin alluded to there, 30% of carbon emissions are from buildings. I think when we're thinking about tackling the housing crisis, it is absolutely right that we think about tackling carbon emissions as well, because there's no point just trying to fix one problem by doing one thing That's not really how things work. It's taking a step back and understanding the broader impact that our current housing stock has on lives, on livelihoods, on the environment, on our neighbourhoods and our surroundings as well. Because if you take that step back and you know, for towns like mine in Bolton, just the way that they have been made up over the years in terms of the different housing stock and how that looks and how that feels, that also has an impact as well. I've been very lucky to go around my constituency and look at some of the new projects and new developments that are taking place. And when we talk about collaborative working, they really are the embodiment of that, and it's been really, really good to see. So I'm seeing you know, social developers working with our local council, working with broader developers like Watson Homes, who are delivering some really great projects in Bolton North East. But really thinking about the landscape that they're building in, the types of homes that they're building, the longevity of those homes, which we just haven't done that in the past. I've got a lot of 40s and 50s prefab homes in my constituency, and so it's really thinking about, we've got some housing stock there. We know the impact it will have if we just start demolishing those and start again. That's not really always a viable option in terms of cost and time as well. You know, I've got incredibly high waiting lists, and I know I've got a lot of empty properties in my constituency, and that's not a problem that's unique to me. That's happening everywhere. We just haven't thought holistically enough about housing and homes for such a long time. And I think in terms of priorities, it's been on the back burner for such a long time that yes, we should absolutely be setting ambitious targets and trying to work towards those at pace, but I think it's also absolutely right and absolutely crucial that we think about the broader impact of those decisions. We think about longevity, we think about the impact that will have on people's lives and livelihoods as well.
Kirith, thank you. Again, another statistic which I think builds on this. I think it's very important too that we think about the individual and the home, the unit, not just about how we can reduce those bills, but 4.4 million social homes. And I read a statistic the other day which was quite shocking. We know the quality of some of those homes, but 70% of the 4.4 million social homes are in desperate need of some type of further enhancement and upgrade about the quality of life for people in those homes. Nick, could I bring you in, because I'm conscious that Kirith and Martin need to go, but just to have an industry perspective on this. EWI Pro, you're a leader in external wall insulation and products. How does industry and our elected colleagues who work for us with our money, how does this come together to get the kind of outputs that we're talking about?
I mean, for me, it comes down to simplifying the message. So for what Martin said, you know, if we achieve and get good consumer protection, that means then the consumers will make the right political choices. And from our perspective, we want this government to do well. They came on a very strong mandate, you know, which was for us a regeneration story. Going back to statistics, Spencer, you know, I have a picture of a house here, and you know, if you want to kind of quantify it, you know, the impact. If you take the walls of a property, which kind of make the biggest surface area of a house, and the roof space, just by tackling those two measures alone, that's over 2/3 of the heat demand that escapes from a house. That to me is a very simple message. So sometimes, to answer Martin's question on how we as industry can do better, as INCA members as well, there's 4 decades of success stories, and that's all around the country. That's in England and all the kind of the devolved governments as well, in Wales and Scotland, of communities literally being transformed. And you know, our external wall insulation measures, they are transformative because you can see it from the outside. So, and that's had massive amounts of not just financial impact, but the social impact for the people living there. Suddenly people feel very proud about the street or the district they live in. They upkeep the properties better. You know, anecdotally, things like crime levels and social disorder goes down internally as well. The fabric is better, the air quality is better, health outcomes go up. So for me, you know, we can help with the government policy by bringing out those benefits and sharing the success stories that have existed for decades and decades, and they are out there, but sometimes they get lost in all the negative press and some of the messaging.
Nick, thank you. Martin, one last question from me, because it's on everybody's lips. You've said the Warmer Homes Plan is coming, conscious that the Chancellor's budget has gone back. Good to know that. Are you able to give us some insight here? Because the concern is that there's lots of focus on other valuable parts of the total picture. Air source heat pumps have been mentioned. But we want to be sure that the fabric of a building, because every building is different, every building has its own particular need. Are you able to let us know whether there are some nuggets in the Warmer Homes Plan that actually play towards the fabric of a building?
Yeah, there'll be no diminution of the commitment to home upgrades in terms of fabric and heat pumps. But I think given how everything that I've said a moment ago, given how important this is,
yes,
I think both in terms of upgrades available to consumers who are in social homes and not, I think there will be plenty in there that I think people in this room will welcome when it finally comes out.
Great.
Good morning. My name is Simon Storer. I'm the Chief Executive of the Insulation Manufacturers Association.
Thank you for being here,
I
Simon.
fully support the fabric first method. I worry about some of the heat pump fraternity who seem to think that you can do heat pumps without doing the fabric, so I worry about that. And I think there needs to be very clear messages between the different types of housing. New build is different from the existing building.
Correct.
I think we need to be clear. New build, we need to set higher standards, and we need compliance and inspection to ensure that we're not having to refurbish those homes between now and 2050, which we are. And the issue really on the existing is how is it paid for? We all know what needs to be done, but nobody has come up with a sensible solution as to how we pay for the work that needs to be done, and the different types of housing. The owner-occupier is a big sector. How do you get people to invest in their own properties?
Simon, you need to wide up.
So very quickly, and therefore, social housing, that's easier. The private rented sector is probably the hardest. How do you get it paid for?
Very quickly.
Brett, Builders Merchants Federation. I speak for 1,000 manufacturers, merchants and distributors.
And you're on your third conference.
My question is, what role is there for mayors? Because none of this can be done by Whitehall, Minister. It's whether it's Andy Burnham with Kirith in Manchester. What role for mayors to do area-based, place-based, whole solutions?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Martin and Kirith, could I ask you to kind of quick fire respond as you wish to do to those 4 questions?
Yeah, I'll let Martin be addressed.
But that's the risk of being a government minister on the panel. I don't want to look like I'm being evasive on it, just to address this up front. I don't want to look like I'm looking evasive, but when we are just a matter of weeks away from
Absolutely,
the Warm Homes
this is fair enough. We understand that.
I'm probably going to say, please wait for the Warm Homes Plan. I wish conference was a month from now, but just address
the things that you can respond to. Yeah.
The point around housing associations, like there are already obviously very good schemes in place, but I take your point about the spark gap. That is something that is being gripped in my brief in particular as Minister for Energy Consumers. We're going to need to work out how we deal with that. Simon's question around new build versus retrofit. We've obviously got the Future Home Standards is still trundling through the system. We hope we come to a conclusion on that soon, but that's going to be really important for the new builds. But I take your point around retrofit, but that's where I would also bring it back to, yes, there is a financing issue, and I think we need to be looking at more innovative ways of financing this for people that aren't necessarily going to be eligible in social homes for all the support. But there is also the consumer confidence piece. I think even if you have innovative, good financing, which we need to have, if you aren't building the confidence for people to actually start making the changes to their homes, we're still really going to struggle. So I think the two are just as important. Brett, could you just very briefly repeat your question?
My question is, it can't all be done by Whitehall.
Yes.
Devolved mayors.
So you're preaching to the converted on this. That as a Scottish in the odd position of being a Scottish MP dealing with
English
dealing
matters.
with an English policy, it's some interesting mental gymnastics. But I don't know how many people in the room might have read Sam Friedman's book about how to fix government. Like, I think there's a compelling argument in there for why we need to be pushing more power out. I think government is always going to have a role for kind of central coordination and making sure that we're maintaining high standards. But as we move to more combined authorities, more mayors. We're obviously already far along the line with this in terms of Scottish and Welsh devolution. My criticism of how the Scottish Government operates on this is we've basically just seen things hoarded in Edinburgh and then not pushed out to local authorities. So, you know, you're preaching to the converted about kind of pushing power down as far as possible on these issues. And also mayors and local authorities are they know their places, they know what's going to work, they know the local supply chains. Like, we need to be taking advantage of that. It can't be a minister knows best, everything directed from Whitehall approach on any of this, or else it just won't work.
Great, thank you.
I'm going to pass over
yes,
to
Kirith.
I think some really important points there you mentioned at the back about the different types of housing stock, and I think we absolutely need to be taking that into account. I also think when we're talking about decarbonising homes, it is about thinking about the different elements and not just insulation. It's also taking into account how is that going to work with heat pump technology. If we fix this problem, what will the impact be on this problem? And trying to take all of that into account. So I think there's a lot of learning to be done there, and we need to make sure that we are taking that into account. I know developers that I've met with in my constituency are looking into that, and that's really, really good. But yeah, I do think we need to think more realistically about the different types of housing stock that we're dealing with, and how that works when we are talking about decarbonising. I also think, coming back to Brett's point about taking decisions out of Whitehall, for me in Greater Manchester, obviously, Andy Burnham and the GMTA have been doing a lot of great work in terms of brownfield regeneration. So we've got a lot of brownfield grants, and I've seen firsthand the impact that that's having, and that's great. And it's really good to see sort of connect the dots, going from sort of, you know, here's the solution and actually seeing it happen in practice. It's really, really valuable. So I'm always keen to work with Andy to understand how we can better improve that decision-making process at a local level and a regional level, because also, you know, the local council knows more about the land and the housing stuff that we've got, so perhaps we work more collaboratively in that sense, and I think that's really, really important. And I think talking about, somebody made a point about how do you get people to invest in their own housing. I think that comes back to the education point that Martin mentioned earlier. Yes, we've got these technologies, we've got these options available for people to reduce bills, to reduce carbon emissions, but actually if people don't understand how that works or what that means in practice, it's very, very difficult to get people to buy into that. You know, we've seen the impact that's having in terms of electric vehicles and how fast that's taking on now, because people understand the technology and understand how it works. So we've got to now get there for homes as well.
Kirith, thank you. Martin said he's got 5 more minutes, so if there are more questions, the gentleman over there. Can we just, before the question, Kirith, thank you so much for joining us. I think we can give you a round of applause. We're very grateful. Sir, your question.
Hi there, Jonathan Atkinson from People Powered Retrofit. We're a retrofit co-op. We're actually delivering Andy Burnham's new able-to-pay service, GM.
Wow.
There's a lot of discussion about holistic housing, and when we've seen quality issues, a lot of the quality issues that have come up have been around the fabric, the quality, the maintenance and improvement. But eco-funding only funds the energy element of the upgrade, not the enabling works. And this feels like a false dichotomy that we've had for many years, and it's exacerbating these kind of issues. Is there a case to bring together housing improvement, maintenance and renewal with retrofit in terms of funding and policy?
Other questions? The gentleman here, and then I'll come over to you there, sir. So we just want really quick fire questions, because it's wonderful to have Martin here with his ministerial responsibility. I'm so sorry to push you.
We talked a bit about the quality stuff earlier. The previous minister, I noticed, said that they thought that the failures were only in the eco scheme, which of course in its previous incarnation set had a similar problem as well, and they're not in the other government schemes. So is the government considering whether actually, rather than a measures problem, there's more of a kind of structural problem with schemes than anything else?
Interesting, that gentleman there, and then we'll take those 3, and then, well, we'll take the lady there too. Yes, if you're going trying to be as balanced as possible here from the top. Tricky. Thank you.
Gentleman for regeneration. Yes, you need to speak to local councils. We know our housing stock. We know exactly who needs it. We have, you know, the people who are getting funding from us for the social. So yeah, use councils, and also you spoke about like when money is given, it's ombudsman. There's a lot of schemes. There's a lot of cowboys that come in and just take it up, and that erodes the trust they have. So we need a good, strong scheme for this if it comes in. There's obviously a lot of money involved.
Thank you very much. The lady there.
Thank you.
So we'll just.
I'm from Vattenfall's Heat Networks team, so I was wondering if the Minister could say anything about the role of heat networks in the Warm Homes Plan. I mean, great that we focus on homes needing heat pump upgrades, but actually 1 in 5 homes by 2050 will be on heat networks.
Yeah.
We need to upgrade those buildings and get them heat network ready as well.
Fantastic. Minister, sorry, there was 4 very quick fire questions there. Thank you.
Very quick fire
thank you. It's kind of you.
Jonathan, I don't want to preempt anything, but I'd be really interested to have a conversation about this if that's possible. Let's have a separate conversation about that. Failures in eco, to an extent agree with what you're saying. Again, I'm going to look very evasive in a lot of this stuff. There will be more coming on this very shortly. What I would say is, I think there is potentially a structural problem, because in other schemes where you have what I've heard referred to as a sort of intelligent customer, so for example, a local authority that's at the centre of the commissioning and everything else, the scheme seems to operate much better than some of the other schemes. So there clearly is a kind of structural issue rather than just a measures issue, but there'll be more that we'll be able to say on that through the course of the next one. On the colleague up there, completely agree. Don't really have much to add to it other than that. I completely agree with what you said. I was a councillor before I was an MP. I know that councillors will know their communities a lot better than anyone who sat in Whitehall. You certainly know a lot more about your community than I do. Why wouldn't we just play to that, play to that strength? And that's certainly the way that I'm approaching this brief. And to the colleague from Vattenfall, the heat networks will play a huge role. In the constituency that I represent, we are looking at a heat network solution using, we're on the River Clyde, so using energy generated. It's going to be incredibly important, and it will also play a large part of the World Bolton plan. So no fear that there is a kind of heat pump versus heat network. It's all part of the same ecosystem, and we need to make sure that we, for those especially social homes, and I live in a heavily tenanted area, like we're not going to be able to achieve what we need to at heat pumps, and we'll need to look at heat networks as well.
Martin, thank you. Nick has just one very short
Just
comment,
super
and then
quick,
we're finished.
Martin, to credit to Scotland, while Derek was still with us, who was part of the INCA board, the delivery of our measure in Scotland has proven to be a lot more successful and safe. So perhaps also as we devolve into local mayoral authorities, we can also take lessons from the devolved administrations and take some of those learnings into national policy.
I have board officials rigid with me saying either a version of how does this operate in Scotland, or what can we learn from Scotland on this, because we now have, it's the advantage of having the mayoral areas, the devolved government, whether that's Wales or Scotland, that we are able to learn from potentially deploy things in those areas to see how they operate. So
Martin, thank you. Can we thank the Minister for his time? It's very unusual to get so much time, and we're very thankful. Thank you so much. Thank you. We're not finished. We're going to continue if you would like to hear the industry experts, but given that we had the Minister here today, boy, this is a crazy day. I think I'm going to give up permanently after this. But we've still got our industry colleagues here, so we're going to run for about 10 or 15 minutes longer if you would like to stay. So, Luke, can I move to you, and could you just give a bit of an oversight from the Southwest, the types of things that you do, but key, what are the key issues that you believe you face as we think about our relationship with government and what government can do to support the things that we're interested in?
I think at the moment the problem is that the funding with the SHDF that the social housing providers are getting, they're saying it's not match funding, so this is why they're doing other measures, because they're saying that I think the administration of the SHD funding, it's that's taking a big chunk out of actually the delivery of the EWI. So at the moment we're seeing in the Southwest there's a lot of solar and loft insulation to get to a C, and fabric isn't being put on the agenda. So as a contractor, we're finding we might be busy for 6 months and then we've got no work, so it's famine and feast.
Which of course is not good, because when you're in those famine times, people don't stop doing this work. They move on to other things. John, can I bring you in? You represent INCA, which is the trade association for what we've been talking about. Just if you may, kick off with some sort of general thoughts from what you've heard and what the trade association seeks to get out of being here today.
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting discussion, and I think key to all this is what is the going to be within the Warm Homes Plan. Certainly, we firmly believe that fabric first whole house approach to retrofit is the right way forward. And the concerns that we have as an industry is that we're not going to be fabric first anymore. We're going to be fabric second, third, or even further down the line. And I think that's the biggest mistake that we could possibly make. There's been a lot of reports and evidence published. One of the most substantial pieces of work is I don't know whether you're familiar with the DEEP report, which was the demonstration of energy efficiency potential, which was published last year. It's probably one of the most comprehensive pieces of research based, and it's actually involved 41 physical retrofits. And it was research carried out by the Leeds Beckett University, University of Salford, and Loughborough University as well. And there's a lot more to it, but the summary was that solid wall information is the most impactful measure and saves more energy than all other measures combined. So it really is important that we try to do what we can to keep that fabric first on the agenda. Those 9 million solid wall properties pre-1945, they can't have insulation in the cavity. There isn't a cavity. The only way that they can be insulated is by putting the insulation on the outside of the wall or the inside of the wall. And if we don't insulate and we put the air source heat pumps in, yes, it's going to impact and make a difference. But somebody described it to me as a more effective way of wasting energy, a more efficient way of wasting energy by not insulating. So that's our message really, and what we want to get out of today is to try to make sure that we get that fabric first back on the government agenda again.
And Nick, your further thoughts?
So is anyone on the retrofit task force here? Fine.
Just clearing himself.
I just left. You were sitting here.
I don't know. Well, it's not there. It's just our concern. Talking amongst
friends.
The INCA board is that there isn't enough, I think, people on the delivery side. So, if Martin takes over the chairmanship of that task force, we definitely they should be speaking to people like INCA members, looking at the case studies, referring back to the DEEP report, and I think also, John, you probably didn't mention too much today, but also INCA launched the INCA why fabric first is the right approach, a comprehensive guide. So you probably didn't mention that, but I thought I'd mention it.
Copies are available.
Do you want to just give a bit more information about why fabric first? Just what the snapshot from what you're seeking to achieve.
I mean, we published this report today, which is the why fabric first is why we believe fabric first is right. Again, because it's my concerns that I explained a little while ago is that the fabric is being sort of, to all intents and purposes, ignored. So we put together a good report as to why and the benefits of fabric first. And it's not all about money. It's not all economic. It's social benefits, lower carbon emissions, lifting people out of fuel poverty, lower NHS costs, improved mental health, creating jobs, greater energy security. It all stems from the fabric first approach, which is why we want to get that back on the agenda again.
Fantastic. Are there any? Yes, we're going to take some questions now, and then Simon, I promise not to cut you off.
No,
my apologies. I was trying to get through the.
I agree with everything you said. I think the other important aspect of this is that we need to reduce the amount of energy that we're using.
Correct.
Because the grid is going to struggle. If we move everything to electric supply, if we move to EVs and everything else, then we're going to have difficulty in keeping the grid up to the level that we need, and therefore buildings need to reduce the amount of energy they use. The way that they do that is by fabric first, and I think that's absolutely essential that we do that as well.
Yes.
That needs to be part of the argument. All the other things, the social aspect, we also need to ensure that we have enough assessors, which there aren't. We don't have enough inspectors, which there aren't. And until we do that, we will continue to struggle to deliver to the level that is required, both for new build and for existing building as well. So those are important aspects that add to the argument, which needs to be made continually, because there are too many voices moving away from fabric first to assume that there is a magic bullet that if you just put a heat pump on, then you resolve everything. All that will do is have heat pumps working at the wrong rate and make it break, and it will be very expensive. And the final thing is that we need to be careful that we don't tell people that it will slash their bills, which we've got up there. It won't. All it will do is it means that your bills won't go up as much as they would have done if you don't have fabric flow. So we need to be careful that the arguments are honest.
Simon, they're very valid and important points, and one of the things that I say regularly is, I'm a layperson in this who's been listening a lot, is that every property is different, and we don't in our society just put a one-size-fits-all on everything. We have to look at the property before us and then think about what is the right application. So we need to together. Just to say, I mean, on behalf of the Minister who is here, this is incredible to have him here just before the release of such an important document, if it indeed does come out. And I can imagine how nervous he was to be here taking these questions, so much thanks to him. Do we have some other questions? No, so, yeah. What?
Go on, I've got one. If you were the Minister...
Nick, are you going to be the Minister?
If you were the Minister publishing Warm Homes Plan, what are the top 2 things you would like to see in it, recognising you're not just representing your own industry?
Yeah, good question.
You've got a broader remit.
Yeah.
I mean, I do agree about the consumer protection angle. So I fundamentally agree that's probably the most important thing, because a more educated consumer user can make the best possible decision. So definitely play onto that. And then probably the second bit is echo what Luke said, is just give more certainty around that fabric is the key component in that story. So we can have heat pumps and all the other measures, but without bringing the heat demand down, the technologies won't work.
Luke, what would be your I'm sure funding streams are key too for many of the things that you do.
Yeah, I think one is that the funding, as we said before, is the match funding. It isn't match funding. That's why there isn't as much external wall insulation at the moment. And the other thing is, I think that there needs to be a level, so there's not a waiting for like wave 3 to come out. So you've got this dip. I mean, in South Wales now, we've waited till now, and we're now starting our schemes now in the winter. So yeah, it needs to be more consistent how the funding flows.
Yeah. I mean, this is an age-old problem with government, that government funds for a particular period of time and then the funding stops, or you wait or the consultation goes back. But consistency of funding is key. John, your thoughts, the top 2?
The top 2, I've got 3 actually.
Why not?
I agree totally. Consumer confidence is absolutely key. We've got to resolve those issues, and I think it is. I think you mentioned about sort of a structural issue. I think it's certainly something that really needs to be examined. For it to be happening again and again, there's got to be something fundamentally wrong with the structure of the schemes. Certainly, the consistency of funding. If investment in the sector is going to happen, it's got to be because we can see the future of the industry. We're all here at the moment thinking, well, is fabric being ignored? So who on earth is going to invest into our sector at this stage at the moment until we've got that confidence for the longevity of that funding? And finally, I also agree that maybe there should be more localised delivery of these schemes. Perhaps take it out of as much from the energy companies and put it to the local areas, governments and councils who understand their own specific problems in their own communities.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wind it up here. Thank you for joining us. The air conditioning's just gone on. You've survived the room without the air conditioning, but you could hear what was said.
Sorry, I was going to add something to David's point. So
yes, okay, and then we'll wind up.
David Adams, so he's been around lots of different task forces and consultations, and I can see. And I shared this with David when we were in Desnes with Miata a couple of months ago. One of the frustrations is, we do such deep dives, like the Bonfield report, each one counts, and it seems like every time there's an external event and makes the press, and there's you can tear it all up again and start again, but actually the research, whether it's deep report or each home counts, all of that intel has been done before. It's just we don't implement things to the fullest. That's one of the other.
Excellent, thanks Nick. Can I thank the panellists and also thank them for their support, because this wouldn't have happened today without INCA, without Joyner Group and without EWI Pro. So thanks to John and Luke and to Nick. Thanks to all of you. And if you're around at 3 o'clock, if you want to come and hear a debate about skills, because somebody has to fit all of this stuff, we'll be here at 3 o'clock. I'm going to go and sit down somewhere because the standing is getting... Yeah, thank you very much everyone. Thank you. Nick, thank you very much.